You are Locked On Braves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Braves POSTCAST, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Grant McAuley alongside Jake Mastroianni after another victory for the Atlanta Braves, who are on quite the roll and finished off a sweep of the Minnesota Twins in the first stop on their road trip, an important road trip, and one that you knew the mission was come home with a winning record in each of these series, and maybe you've got yourself a chance to do some pretty special things, both in the division and, of course, in the postseason race. Well, the Braves took that mission to the next level with a sweep behind Chris Sale. They finish it off with a 5-1 victory on Wednesday. We're going to talk all about that, and we'll, of course, be looking ahead as the Braves roll into Citizens Bank Park for a 4-game showdown with the Philadelphia Phillies. But a lot to get to on this show. Before we get started, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta here on YouTube, and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate you making us your first listen of the day as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And you download the Game Time app, create that account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. Well, it was game time for the Braves yet again. And what that's meant here lately, Jake, is that they're playing some pretty complete games all around. You're getting good pitching for the most part. I think we've seen a lot of that here over the last couple of weeks. And we're starting to see signs from this offense, which makes you think if that group gets it going with the kind of pitching the Braves have been getting, this could actually be a pretty dangerous club, a formidable club. Let's call them that.
That's what we've been waiting on all year long. And look, it's too much for me to see this year to really get too excited about it. But I mean, it's a long stretch now. This is no longer a week-long stretch. It's a 2-week stretch that we've seen this team playing like that. Now, there have still been some issues with the offense even during that stretch. But the one thing that you mentioned, the pitching, has just been outstanding throughout, and that's obviously kept them in a lot of these games. But in this series in particular, the offense really able to put some runs on the board, come up with some early and come up with some late as well, and that's what you love to see.
Yeah, and Chris Sale has kind of been the story when it comes to great pitching all year long. He continues to just dazzle for this Braves club. He finally picked up that long-awaited 15th win of the year, lowering his ERA a couple of little points in the process. He's down to 2.58 on the season. Just another excellent start from him. 6 strikeouts, allowing just 1 run to the Twins across the 6 innings of work to pick up that victory. And the offense was able to back him up. But I think how many times, Jake, have we talked about it this year, when the Braves need Chris Sale to come in and deliver and help them win a baseball game, whether that's to extend perhaps a winning streak or win a series, or it's to stop a skid. He has answered the call in every conceivable way this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy you want to come up in whatever the situation is, kind of like you said. I mean, whether it's to end a losing streak, whether it's to keep one going, get momentum going, get a series off on a great start, to cap off a great series like he did in this one. I mean, he has just delivered on all accounts every time he's gone out there, except for basically one start this year, which happened to come against the Oakland Athletics of all teams. He has delivered. He has given this team exactly what they need to try and win a ball game. And he's kept it, really 2 earned or less in 14 straight starts now. I mean, that is good, Grant. That will give your team a chance to win every time you go out there. And like I said, we just get a little bit from this offense, go a long way, especially when Chris Sale is on the mound. So you can't say enough about the work that he's done. He did finally get that 15th win. Seems like he's been sitting on 14 for a while. I don't know how much people looking to wins this year, but every little bit counts, especially as he looks for to try to get that Cy Young race this year.
Yeah, and I think he's the front runner right now for that Cy Young race. He's in the pole position. Let's just at least look at it that way. Chris Sale, you mentioned the 14 consecutive starts, allowing 2 runs or less, ties a franchise record. And Greg Maddux never did this. I saw his name on the list during the broadcast. He did it, 2 or 3 different times, which is not altogether shocking because I grew up watching this team, and Greg Maddux was a tour de force in a lot of different ways, and he did it for a long time, and he ended up in Cooperstown. Chris Sale, when healthy, is one of the best pitchers in baseball. This is the kind of thing I think you expect from him as well, Jake. You go look at that resume of the kinds of things that he's capable of doing, piling up strikeouts and throwing just excellent baseball and having a low ERA. Those are things that Chris Sale has done throughout the course of his career. The last 4 or 5 years, it was a challenge because he wasn't healthy. But when he is healthy, this is a guy who's shown he has still got plenty left in the tank.
And I think that's really what it was when this trade was made from the Red Sox. You really didn't know what you had in Chris Sale. Yeah, he threw 100 innings last year, ERA over 4. But as I've pointed out several times now, you look at the metrics and the underlying data, and the stuff was still really, really good. It's just he hasn't been healthy enough, and he's obviously gotten older. I think people just assumed that maybe his stuff had diminished, but clearly that's not the case. I mean, this is one of the best versions of Chris Sale that we've seen, and there's been a lot of really good versions of Chris Sale throughout what's been a really good career. But clearly he still knows how to pitch. He has really good stuff. The velocity is still there for him, and that slider is just is nasty. And I like that he can dial it up the velocities. He can throw it, in the high 70s. We also see some harder ones every now and then in the low 80s. So upper 70s, low 80s, I think is what I meant to say there. But to be able to kind of manipulate that slider too, that has such good movement on it, deception with the delivery that he has is really tough, obviously, on lefties. He's really, really good. We just haven't seen it for so long. I think people just forgot about it.
Yeah, but he's a complete package, no doubt about it. And in addition to that dynamite slider, we've also seen he'll operate that fastball anywhere between 94, 95 every once in a while. Then all of a sudden you'll see 96, 97, 98. I mean, he can rear back and still use that when he needs to. And I feel like he got in one of those situations in this game where things were kind of teetering and he just had a nice mound visit. And all of a sudden it was just, let's dial it up and throw it past him. And that's something that Chris Sale is extremely good at, among other things. Now, on the offensive side, on this night for the Braves, Jorge Soler got the scoring started. He did so early with a home run. Good to see that. The real offensive star in this game, I know you're right here with me, Luke Williams gets to start at third base. Gio Urshela just getting the night off. Luke Williams made the most of it. Couple of doubles, including a 2-run double in the Braves' 4-run seventh. And that, of course, was the rally that put them ahead for good in this game.
Yeah, everybody looking at the lineup today, wondering why Gio Urshela is not in there. He's been playing really good at third base. Snit pushed the right buttons with this one, putting Luke Williams in there, coming up with a couple of doubles. And look, when he filled in with Riley after Riley got injured, he came in and doubled in that game, and he's played pretty good defense as well at third base. So, I don't know what led them to that decision, but certainly it was the right one as he had a big game. Just good to see that, and we've seen that a lot from Braves players. Last year too. Guys that just didn't get to play a lot, but they were ready when they came off the bench, and they would come in and have a big game here or there. And it's just great to see that from Luke Williams. And like I said, other players that the Braves have had over the last couple of years that, if everybody's healthy, especially, and that hasn't been the case this year, bench players aren't going to play much. And so it's hard to be prepared to stay fresh when that's the case. But we still continue to see Braves players when they get an opportunity here or there to step up and have some big moments.
And Bobby Cox was really big on this, where he kind of called it his B Bombers lineup, where he was going to use that B team and get these guys at bats, because you don't want them sitting for 7, 8, 9, 10 days without really getting a chance to swing and see some live pitching. It's just helpful. And when you're not talking about, okay, well, are we giving Austin Riley a day off, or can we just kind of mix Luke Williams in here and just give him an opportunity to get those at bats, to stay fresh, to be up to speed with what they need him to do? Because goodness knows, we've seen it all year long. Should he be called upon in a situation where somebody else gets hurt, knock on wood, you'd like to know that he's played sometime in the last calendar month. And that has also been a problem for certain people on the Braves bench over the last couple of years. Be that as it may, great to see Luke Williams with that 2-hit game, knocking in a couple of runs as well. Braves scored those 4 runs in the 7th and took the lead for good in this game. We saw a run knocked in from Matt Olson in this one as well. Ramon Laureano driving home a run. I mean, it's just started to turn into some of these names doing things on multiple days in a row. Laureano is a guy it seems like we talk about all the time, but it's good to start mentioning Matt Olson in back-to-back-to-back days with this kind of thing, because it's been a tough season for him. He's looking to finish strong, and driving in some runs as part of a key rally, that's certainly something that feels like a thing that Matt Olson is capable of doing.
And getting the extra base hits too now as well. That's 5 straight games where he's had an extra base hit, either double or a home run. So that's exactly what you're needing from Matt Olson, what you're needing from your number 4 hitter. Look, Marcel's been there all year. We've talked about it. You're down to, really 2 big guys that you were counting on coming into the year that are left in the top of that lineup, in Marcell Ozuna and Matt Olson. You need those guys to produce, and you need, some unexpected guys to step up, like we've seen with Laureano and with Luke Williams tonight. But those 2 at the top, Ozuna and Matt Olson, I think if this Braves offense is going to go and it's going to have more games like this down the stretch, it's going to be because of those 2 guys. So to see Matt Olson getting going, and not just getting the hits, but getting the extra base hits, and look at that strike zone could get a little bit better for him too. He got rung up tonight on a pitch that was at his head. But putting, other than that, it's been really good to see the at-bats from him lately. And again, just to see that power, to see those extra base hits, that's what made him so special last year. And it doesn't always have to be the home run, although we'll certainly take it. But just getting those balls in the gap, getting those doubles, what he was doing really early on in the season when he was getting all those doubles, that's what you want to see from Matt Olson. See him driving in runs in those spots, getting those extra base hits.
Yeah, you need it at this point. He's kind of a guy that you've got to count on, I think, even more than maybe you were before. And I mean, look, the expectations pretty big coming off the year that he had a season ago. Expectations were big for a lot of these guys, but still a chance. While you can't do anything about the games that have already happened and maybe the first half that wasn't so great, a lot of big things can still happen down the stretch for this Braves club. And it would be great, I'm sure, for Matt Olson. He'd love to be a part of that. We got a lot more to get to on this edition of the Braves Postcast. We'll talk more about this series, the start for Chris Sale that got him in the win column that helped the Braves finish off this sweep. And, of course, we'll be looking ahead to the series in Philadelphia, which is coming up on the other side of this break on the Braves Postcast. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. ebaymotors.com, eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is available only to customers in the U.S. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks and turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. Well, Jake, let's take a look at the line score and the box score for the Braves as they picked up this victory and moved themselves to 13 games over 500 for the first time since the middle of May. The Braves now 73 and 65 runs, 8 hits, no errors for Atlanta, 5 men left on base. The Twins dropped to 72 and 61, just 1 run on 7 hits. They left 8 men on base. Winning pitcher Chris Sale now 15 and 3. Loser is David Festa, who is now 2 and 4 on the year, and no save in a game that lasted 2 hours and 39 minutes as the Braves completed the sweep of the Minnesota Twins. Let's get back to Chris Sale, who we talked about a little bit in the open there. But when it comes to things that have gone right for the Braves, it feels like a list that doesn't have quite as many things as we expected to have on it this year. Chris Sale, though, his name has to be at or near the top of the list for the Braves. You talked about the trade that brought him over from the Boston Red Sox, and this was a calculated risk, a gambit, if you will, for Alex Anthopoulos and his front office, betting that there was more there for Chris Sale if he could remain healthy, and the Braves doubled down on that as well, extending him after bringing him over from the Red Sox. But all he's done is deliver. He's now 15 and 3 on the year, 6 innings of 1-run ball, 6 hits, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts. Really good performance for Chris Sale, and honestly just par for the course in what this big lefty has been doing for the Braves all year long.
It's what we've come to expect from him, honestly, and it's great to see. I mean, you go back to that trade. I loved Vaughn Grissom. I thought he could be a big part of this team. I loved the bat and thought he had a place on this team going forward. And so it was a risk to go get a Chris Sale who hasn't been healthy in a long time. Was coming off a year, like I said, where the numbers didn't look great, but the metrics still were there for Chris Sale. And I think it was all just a matter of could he be healthy? So to go take that risk, for a really good player and a good prospect in Vaughn Grissom, that was probably your best trade chip, that was risky. And then, like you said, they doubled down on that and extended him, and it's paid off huge. Again, we say it every time. I don't know where this team would be without Marcell Ozuna offensively. I don't know where they'd be without Chris Sale on the pitching side of things. And obviously you've gotten good performances from Lopez, Fried, Schwellenbach, and others. But, I mean, Chris Sale's the leader for the NL Cy Young. He has been that good. He has been that dominant on the mound. And as we said earlier, 14 consecutive starts now of 2 earned or less. He has given you a chance to win just about every time out there this season. And that is invaluable for a starting pitcher to do that. But on this night in particular, we've seen this Twins lineup. It can be kind of aggravating. It wasn't the most dominant start from Chris Sale, just 6 strikeouts. We're used to seeing 8, 9 from him. There was really only 2 innings he had to work, the 4th inning and the 6th inning. Other than that, it was 1, 2, 3 innings. But in those 2 innings, they really got after him and made him throw a lot of pitches. But you mentioned the velocity. I just want to point it out real quickly because I mentioned the velocity on that slider. It ranged from 75 to 83 miles per hour. Again, to be able to kind of change that velocity with that movement. And then the fastball, it ranged from 91 to 99 and averaged 95. So just that ability to be able to take some off, to put some on when you need to, and just that deceptiveness, because it really is just a 2-pitch mix mostly. I mean, throw a little bit of changeups and a sinker here or there, but to be able to just have those 2 pitches, but throw them at different speeds, and again, from that arm slot, just, be able to get it done. It's really hard, obviously, to hit him.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, it's one of the toughest for a variety of reasons. It's the big velocity, it's the great pitches, but yeah, it's an unorthodox delivery as well. On top of that, it's kind of a little bit of everything that makes Chris Sale so great. You look at this Twins lineup. I mean, you mentioned it can be very pesky, but it's one that's dealing with no Carlos Correa, no Byron Buxton. Royce Lewis had the night off in this game as well. And yeah, this was a lineup where you looked at it, at least on paper, where, as we talk about many times, the game is not played. And you feel like Chris Sale on the mound against this group gives you a pretty good chance to win. But that's kind of been what we've said about Chris Sale against just about any group all season long. He delivered again tonight. Braves bullpen coming out after him, Luke Jackson. How about a scoreless inning for him in the 7th? It looked like it could be an interesting series of decisions again for the Braves. I think it's a product, though, of the bullpen having to get used an awful lot here lately. Off days kind of at a premium. I know that they have had some in the more recent past, then at some stretches throughout the second half when it seemed like they couldn't buy an off day. But you're going to have situations where you're going to have to use just about everybody. And Luke Jackson, you'd like to see him use his significant strikeout stuff to give the Braves a little bit of a contribution here. And he was able to do it tonight. A walk and 2 strikeouts for him in a scoreless inning. Nice play by Matt Olson to end that frame as well. Joe Jimenez struck out the side in the 8th. Raisel Iglesias closed it out in the 9th inning and lowered his ERA in the process to 1.33 on the year. It's been a nice season for the Braves pitching staff overall, and to kind of bring it all the way back to Chris Sale, and again, some scoreless work from the bullpen also helps out. But you look at this Braves pitching staff and you think, how are they leading or have been in the discussion for the lead among pitching staffs in all the major leagues, but definitely the National League? And I think leading the National League in ERA still, and doing all of this without Spencer Strider, leading all of baseball in strikeouts and doing that without Spencer Strider, is just a testament to what this group has done. Chris Sale's been a huge part of that, quite obviously.
Yeah, certainly has been. I mean, when you lose Spencer Strider in the first couple of weeks of the season, you got some question marks in the rotation. You don't know what you're going to get out of Ronaldo Lopez. You don't know really at that point what you're going to get out of Chris Sale. And for this rotation to be where it's been is just truly remarkable overall. And it's not just the starters, it's the bullpen as well. The bullpen has been really, really good. You got those 3 guys, and Joe Jimenez, Pierce Johnson, Raisel Iglesias, obviously AJ Minter there for a lot of the year before getting injured, but other guys have stepped up as well. Aaron Bummer's been mostly good. I know some Braves fans get a little frustrated with him, but I think he's been good. Dylan Lee has been excellent when they haven't been playing with his options. But, to get back to your point on Luke Jackson and Jesse Chavez the night before, and we talked about this last night, look, there are times you're going to have to count on your 7th and 8th guys in the bullpen to get you some innings, to get some work, especially when you're winning games like this. You're going to have to trust those. Now, where I think Brian Snitker went a little bit different tonight is when Luke Jackson came in, you had Aaron Bummer up and ready just in case in that situation if something happened. And then you did go to Joe Jimenez, and then you did go to Raisel Iglesias, even with a 4-run lead, which I am okay with because you got a chance to win a game this time of year. You go for it. You don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. You don't know if you're going to need those guys or not. You had a chance to win tonight. And after what happened the night before, I think Brian Snitker wasn't going to mess around this time. And he was going to make sure to use those top guys to finish this one off.
Yeah, and I think that you kind of manage as you can. And the Braves have been really big on saying, like, look, we got to go out there and worry about today. And we'll figure out tomorrow and how to get there. And clearly, as you manage a bullpen, that's a bit of a moving target at times. And you are going to try to stay away from different guys. But there are still some pretty good arms who did not have to pitch tonight, who could be available for you in important innings in the Phillies series. And we'll see what exactly it'll mean for Raisel Iglesias, Joe Jimenez, and those guys when it comes time to come into a big situation in this Phillies series. Maybe they won't be available in that first one, but maybe they'll be available for the rest of it. But either way, there's a lot of different moving parts that go into managing that bullpen, but you can't.
And easier to do. Sorry, Grant. Easier to do over 162, which we see Snit do to manage these guys. But as he himself has said, it is go time. If you need to use these guys to win a game, you got to go and do it.
Yeah, no, you definitely do. And I feel like at this point, this is why you have tried to manage with the rest for the starting pitchers and the rest of the staff and the way that you've done your bullpen. Now it's just, okay, I'm going to try to find you a day here and there. But for the most part, it's kind of all hands on deck. And that's where the Braves have been. And if they want to get into the postseason, they're going to have to report to their post every single day, until which time they have secured that spot. And they've got a big opportunity ahead of them, of course, against the Philadelphia Phillies. Braves offense was held down over the first 6 innings, at least, by David Festa, but that 4-run inning that they opened up in the 7th gave them the lead. Ramon Laureano, 2 more hits, drove in a run. Matt Olson, his RBI, and I don't want to get out of here without mentioning, how about Marcell Ozuna with just the greasy fast speed, scoring from first base on that double by Matt Olson. That, I think, is just one of those times where you see it, it's coming, it's happening, and you know that the Braves are going to have a lot of fun after the fact, and they definitely did in the dugout. Travis d'Arnaud got a little bit of comeuppance from his night before, where he was scoring from first and had a whole gaggle of teammates trying to fan him off when he was done.
And I don't know why he did it. Ramon Laureano is coming up next and is going to get a hit. So just kind of wasted that there. But yeah, no, that was fun to see. And, Matt Olson, again, we talked about it earlier, but just coming out with that big hit. But yeah, to see the wheels there. And then for Ramon Laureano, it was big in that spot because you bring in a lefty to face Olson. Olson gets the big hit off the lefty, and then it does set up a matchup with Ramon Laureano, who's obviously a righty, and he got the 3-batter minimum now, so you feel pretty good about that. So that just was great for so many ways. Matt Olson to get the lefty on lefty hit, and then it set up Ramon Laureano for his own hit.
Yep, a lot of good things happened in that inning, and the Braves used it as part of a 4-run frame for a 5-1 win and a sweep of the Minnesota Twins. When we come back on the Braves postcast, we have more to get to. We'll wrap up the series against Minnesota, and we'll be looking ahead to a 4-game showdown for the National League East. It's going to be the first-place Philadelphia Phillies hosting the Atlanta Braves for the final time in the regular season. We'll talk about it next on the Braves postcast. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. It's Liquid IV. Blast off with the iconic summer flavor of Popsicle Firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using the promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Let me tell you about the best way to buy tickets to virtually any and everything. It is Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. There are plenty of things to love about Game Time and the ticketing experience. You get panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, so you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's the Game Time app. Create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Let's talk a bit about a big series, one we've had circled on our calendars for a while, Jake, and one where we were kind of wondering, by the way both of these teams were playing in the second half, just how close was this race going to be? And as it happens, the Braves can't move into first place here, even if everything goes right for them in this series, but they could take a bite out of a lead that is now down to 5 games as the Phillies were pounded on Wednesday by the Houston Astros. And after taking the first couple of games, I believe, of that series as well, Braves kind of needed Houston to help them out a bit as they were busy winning their games. But the Phillies, who have been about a 500 club all of the second half and have had their own struggles here, they're going to be welcoming in a Braves team that just took a series from them in Atlanta. So there's an awful lot of intrigue, as if you already didn't need it this time of year when the first and second place teams in any division within shouting distance of one another face off.
Yeah, it's a big division and a big series that we've all been pointing toward. It's the last matchup we're going to see between these teams, at least in the regular season. So it's huge. And for me, I look at it, this is the last real chance for the Braves to get themselves back in this division, because you lose this series, obviously, you go into the month of September, back several games, and it just becomes that much harder. You split it and you're right back where you were, and it still doesn't feel great. But you win this series and you're obviously within 3 games, and you got a real chance in September. So you sweep it, obviously you feel really good. So this is, the chance for the Braves to, do the work themselves, to take on the Phillies themselves and really get back into it. So it's a big series. The Phillies got, their pitchers lined up. And Braves pretty much do as well, which you feel pretty confident without all the Braves starters. You'd love to have Sale in there. But either way, just really good pitching matchups. It's going to be a great series between two teams. In Philadelphia, the Phillies are 44-24 at home this year. That crowd is going to be into it. It's a great crowd there. And this is the Phillies' chance on their side to, I think, put things away. They got to be looking at it from that standpoint. As bad as they played in the second half, they come in here and take care of business and win this series. You feel like you've really, taken a big step towards finishing off the division. Now, there's still a month left to go and things can happen in baseball, but this is a series, I think, from the Braves standpoint. This is our last real chance to get back into it. From the Phillies standpoint, this is our chance here to put this thing away.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to make a move if you can and take a bite out of this divisional lead that the Phillies have, which is 5 games. And with 4 to play here over the next 4 days, the Braves are going to try to do just that. We talked about it. You just mentioned it. I mean, this kind of does feel like the last stand as far as the East is concerned. While there will be the month of September to follow, or the rest of the month anyway, the best way to win is always head-to-head. And the Braves have done pretty well against the Phillies head-to-head this year. They're 6-3 against them, but the Philadelphia Phillies have definitely played well at Citizens Bank Park, as you mentioned, and we do have some pretty great pitching matchups lined up for this one. Braves are going to go with Charlie Morton in Game 1. We'll talk more about him as he faces off with Christopher Sanchez, a lefty who the Braves saw at Truist Park last week. Game 2, we'll see Reynaldo Lopez, who was dominant against the Phillies in his return from the injured list. He will match up with Ranger Suarez, the Phillies ace lefty. Then it's Max Fried against Zach Wheeler, and it'll be Spencer Schwellenbach against Aaron Nola, because what would a series be between the Braves and the Phillies if they didn't see Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola just about every time? It feels that way anyway, but either way, you knew that they were going to bring out their best. The Phillies were. You know how tough they are. You know how heated this rivalry has been at times when the stakes have been much higher than a series in late August. So it should be pretty fascinating to see these two NL East rivals go head-to-head here with what looks like 4 pretty good pitching matchups. And with the Braves coming in off a sweep, at least they can feel like they came into the series with some momentum. Now, can they keep it going and win a 6th consecutive series?
Yeah, that would be great, obviously. And you had the momentum. You did what you had to do, what you needed to do against Minnesota. Because I said coming into this, you really need to be within 5 games coming into that Phillies series, because you win it. Like I said, you knock it down to 3. But even if you split it, it is 5. It's not impossible, but obviously makes it that much harder. And for the Braves too, not to move away from this Phillies conversation, the Mets are playing really good baseball. They were down 4-0 tonight against the Diamondbacks, and they've tied it up. We'll see where that goes, but the Mets are still right there in it too. So you got to win to try to fight them off as well. But I just, this series is going to be a lot of fun. Yes, you're going to see the Phillies' best starters, but the Brave starters have been really good. The one thing I'll say, as good as the starting pitching has been, you haven't gotten 6-7 innings consistently out of those guys. You would love to see that kind of happen in this series. That would help with some of the bullpen. But again, as we've said a lot this year, it really comes down to that offense. Can they come up with those big clutch hits that have eluded them for most of this season? I think if they can do that and the starting pitching continues what it's doing, Braves got a real chance to win their 4th series over the Phillies this year, in 6 in a row, as you said.
Yeah, big to get the 6 innings from Chris Sale, I think, to close out Minnesota, finish off the sweep. I think Max Fried would have had more of a chance to maybe do something a little bit more special if he didn't have to sit down for 90 minutes and wait between his first inning of work and the next 4. But it was, I thought, impressive that he went out there and was able to get that whole thing done. Be that as it may, the Braves, who have won these 3 games in a row, 8 of their last 10, head into Philadelphia, where the Phillies have lost, or 5-5 in their last 10, and lost their finale against the Houston Astros. Braves road record, in case you're curious, 37-32. You mentioned the Phillies 44-24 at home. And the Braves, as of right now, have a 3.5 game lead in the wild card over the Mets, pending the outcome of the action on Wednesday. That's for the 3rd and final wild card spot there. Let's talk a little bit about Charlie Morton. He's going to be on the mound in Game 1 against the Phillies, 7-7, 4.24 ERA. He faces lefty Christopher Sanchez, who gave up a ton of hits to the Braves but didn't necessarily, I didn't feel like, get knocked around. They weren't able to kind of get that knockout blow on him. He's 9-9, 351, has been a big part of the Phillies rotation this season. Charlie's been pitching, I feel like, a lot better lately. If he could keep that trend going, that would go a long way towards helping the Braves to take the opener of that series, which would be, as we've said many, many, many times already in this show and many others, the momentum you're looking for.
Yeah, Charlie Morton obviously pitched better as of late, but I think if you look at this rotation right now, he's probably the one that concerns you the most, just because we've seen even in some of these good starts where things can get away from him quickly and get away from him in a really bad way. And against that Phillies lineup in that ballpark, you cannot let that happen. You cannot afford to have your command slip for an inning or two here or there. But he's done a great job, at least lately, of kind of managing that, working through it, and being able to go deep in the games and give the Braves a chance to win. So you would love to see that happen again. Can give the Braves good 5-6 innings in this one, keep them in the ball game. We'd love to see that, get this series off. It's a big one, too. It's the first game. Obviously, before a game series, you kind of set the tone for what happens the rest of the way. So you're looking for Charlie Morton to do that.
We'll see if Charlie's able to deliver again. The veteran righty for the Braves, 7-7, a 4.24 ERA against Christopher Sanchez. The lefty, 9-9 with a 3.51 ERA. Thursday, 6:40 p.m. Eastern Time. First of 4 between the Braves and the Phillies. 5 games separate them in the NL East standings. Where will they be by the end of this series? We'll be talking about it over the course of the rest of the week. We appreciate you listening and riding along with us here on the Braves Postcast. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. Leave us those likes and comments. Share the show with a friend and subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. Once again, the Braves behind Chris Sale complete the sweep of the Minnesota Twins. Next stop, Philadelphia. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Grant McAuley. We will catch you next time. And until then, so long, everyone.